Hello everyone, welcome to the RhoMobile Weekly Webinar. Today's topic, we're going to be demonstrating a brand new feature that we've announced, which is our iPhone builds from Windows. So what you see now on your screen is the RhoHub website in my Windows machine. And I will go ahead and log into my RhoHub account. So yesterday I completed this application from scratch called Cal Off-Road. I found a data feed online, and it is going to be downloading it downloads data from the Dirtopia website showing off-road locations in California. So what we're going to demonstrate is building this application for iPhone. But first let's take a look at the application itself. So we have our get URLs here. And so I'll go ahead and copy that and check that out. So we'll check out the roads application. And then we will also check out our RhoSync application. Now that we have a roads and RhoSync application, I'm going to use my personal favorite editor, which is NetBeans, to open up the project and take a look at the files. On OS X, I use TextMate. On Windows, excuse me, on Windows, I always use NetBeans. So we'll start with a new project. Ruby with application existing sources. We'll just point it to our webinars folder. I'll call it Cal Off-Road. So now it's creating the project file. I'm going to open this in NetBeans. I always like to rename it. By default, it names it source files, and we'll just call it Cal Off-Road roads. So what we have here is our RhoSync app and our roads app. Our RhoSync app is very simple. If we take a look at our sources, we have one source called trail and a trails.json file. This trail here, all we have implemented is query, which simply takes this JSON file and stuffs it into the result hash and outputs query finished. The JSON file is created by another Ruby script that I've made. And this Ruby script here uses Mechanize to screen scrape the Dirtopia wiki page. And it goes and lists all off-road trails in California and pulls them out. So there's two URLs because it's a tabbed view. We use Mechanize to then, in each URL, get all the links to all of the different trail wiki pages. Once we do that, we get a title for the page and the URL for the page. In the HTML, we get the GPS coordinates using latitude and longitude. And finally, we find the first paragraph on each page that doesn't have clear in it. Because on the Dirtopia website, some of them have images at the top that are set to clear left. And we want to get the first text section. And finally, we just write that to the JSON file. Because this data doesn't load very often, it's okay to have it just in a JSON file that then you can upload periodically to your RhoSync server, and it will then update the data. Additionally, you could have this in your source adapter and query it directly. However, it's a pretty long syncing process because it loads a whole bunch of wiki pages to pull the data out. So for efficiency, I decided to load it into a JSON file and have that JSON file on the server. So another thing you could do is have the JSON file up on S3 and download it from S3. And when that happens, you can have your RhoSync server then grab the JSON file from S3 and have a task running that periodically updates that JSON file as well. So there's various ways to get the data into RhoSync. So that's all there is to the RhoSync server. It's very lightweight and very quick. Our off-road app, if we take a look first at our rhoconfig text, we have our start page as trail/start instead of the index page. That makes it go to the start action of the controller. So we can see the put some more logic around sync and handling that you otherwise can't in your index page. We've changed the minimum severity to 3 so that the application runs faster and it is not logging while it is on the device, since we're going to be submitting it to the App Store. And we have a splash screen image with a 2-second delay, centered and zoomed. In our app, we have our application RB. We have disabled the toolbar at the bottom because we're going to do all the navigation on our various screens. And we have our trail controller. Our trail controller, you notice we start at the start method, so we'll find our start method. And the first thing it's going to do is, if it's not logged in, show a pop-up saying you do not have any data, and then log in with user and password T. Because this application doesn't do any logging in, we're making everybody use the same username, which is just T. And that's what we'll see on our RhoSync server. When login happens, the login callback is called. If the error code comes back and it doesn't have an error, we then call sync and pass it to our sync notify method. If there is an error, we say error logging into service and check that you have connectivity and try again, and then display an error page. When sync has completed, you can say data has been successfully downloaded. If for any reason there was an error, because we aren't syncing a lot of data and it's not client specific, we're simply going to just reset the client, log in, and sync again. This can happen if you've reset your RhoSync server and it is not working properly, or your data is mismatched, and we don't want the user to see any of this, so we're just going to behind the scenes redo the sync process. The other pages now are just changes to our ERBs. So we'll open up our Start ERB here. We have 3 actions here. There's the index, a map, and an about page. Our index here is just going to show the list of all the trails. It has the show action for that, so if we look at our show ERB, we have some styling here to make things look a little tighter on the screen, and then just display the title and the description. And the description from the screen scraping had a whole bunch of links and other HTML tags in the text. And so we're using reg expression search and replace to remove all those tags and just display clean text on the screen. If we go back to our controller, we can see the map method, which is using geolocation. And so it says if the position is known, then set the notification for the geolocation callback and go to wait. Otherwise, use the known position. Once that's done, we do a trails.find to find all the trails. We iterate through each trails and add annotations. So we're going to display them all on the map. Then we display the map with all of the annotations and links, and create the map and redirect it to start. And so that's the entirety of this app. It's a very simple app. It fulfills a distinct role and a distinct need. And so what you do is you run the app and it will show you all the off-road trails on the map, and you can get a short information about it, and you can then see where that is in relation to where you are. So once this app is all built, we now have it up on RhoHub, and we can go to build the application, and when we select the platform for iOS, it's now asking us for a couple of things. It's asking us for a certificate and a provisioning profile. If we take a look at our certificate, we can say, here's the instructions on how to build your certificates. If you're on Windows, you have to use OpenSSL. It comes with Git Bash, and since you're working with RhoHub, you typically will have Git Bash installed on Windows. You follow the instructions to generate your certificate and signing request on the developer portal, and then you execute these following commands. So let's walk through this process and create an application here and create our certificate. So we're going to go to developer.apple.com. We'll go to the iOS Dev Center. And we're going to log in with our Apple developer account. And go ahead and sign in. So we'll go to the provisioning portal, which is where your certificates and everything are managed. And we can take a look and see that I already have a certificate installed, and it already has several provisioning profiles. But since we want to show how this works, I'm going to revoke my certificate and create a new one. So now that I've revoked my certificate, it shows pending revocation. If I get a refresh here, it should say I do not have any valid certificates. So what I'm going to do is now request a certificate. So it tells us to generate a CSR and submit the file. These instructions on their website are Mac specific and tell you to use keychain access. In our RhoHub help, we have information on how to generate your CSR here. So first we need to generate a private key. So we'll copy this and go to our location here. So we'll just generate it right here. So we're going to paste our instructions here. And we now have generated a private key to use. We're going to copy these lines here to generate our request. So the important thing here is our subject here. The email address, you need to use your email address that you have signed up on your developer site, and you must use your name as well. So we're going to go ahead and type that in here. So once we have done that, if we do a listing here, we have a certificate signing request, .cert signing request. So we go back to our Apple provisioning profile and then upload that file that we've just created. Then we will select Submit. It now says there's a team signing request pending, and so we will go ahead and approve that. Just please check one or more check boxes. So I believe our team agent must do this approval here. I cannot select the checkbox here to approve. Let's do a refresh here and see if this really is active or not. I checked with our team agent and it says it's already active, so we'll do a refresh of this page. Okay, so it seems that it was approved since I have power to approve them and I requested it myself. I now have a certificate. So then you want to download the certificate. So we'll download this here, and we will save that file. And we'll go ahead and copy that and put it into our webinars folder here. So we now have our developer identity certificate. We'll now continue our instructions here. After it has been generated, you download the file, and you must convert it to a P12 format. So we'll open up our command prompt again and execute these commands. So we're converting our certificate from X509 format to the PEM format. If we take a look now, we now have our developer identity.pem. We will then export the key and the certificate into a P12 format file. And it's going to prompt us for a password, and you note in step 5, this password cannot be blank. If this password is blank, then it will not be accepted in RhoHub. So we'll give our P12 format file a password. So now we have finished creating our certificate. We can now select our certificate here. And we select the P12 file that we've just created and put in the password that we created. Now it says we need a provisioning profile. Follow the Create Provisioning Profile instructions on the iOS developer portal. You download the provisioning profile and then select and match the bundle identifier. So we'll go back to our provisioning portal, and there's a provisioning section here. And it shows all of the existing ones. We're going to go ahead and create a new profile. We'll call this the Cal Off-Road Development. Excuse me. We'll select the certificates of the certificate I just created. Our app ID is going to be Cal Off-Road. And the devices we're going to have all of the devices we have registered. And then select Submit. So if we refresh the page, it says pending. And it should go to active. One thing you notice is the app ID. The app ID is com.rhomobile.caloffroad is what we created our app ID with. So we'll download this provisioning profile here. And we'll go ahead and copy it into our folder. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. We'll go back to our webinars and we'll paste it here. So now we have our mobile provisioning file. We'll go back and select this file for upload. cal-offroad-development.mobile-provisioning. And the bundle identifier that we had created for this application is com.rhomobile.cal-offroad. Our roads get revision. We're going to build this using the master branch of roads. And we're building a development build. So now we will say create new build. And it says a new build is being created. This will take a few minutes. So what's happening is we are now building this in the background. When this completes, your build will be available to download. If anybody has any questions, now would be a good time to type them in. And we'll go ahead and answer a couple of them. And the build process for iPhones takes about 90 seconds or so. It's being dispatched to a build machine, being built, and then will be added to your account. Once the build has been completed, your status will be updated to completed.